Well, good afternoon. The World Health Organization in 2019 put out an article on the dangers of stagnating water, or water that just sits for a long time. And they say what happens is you get all kinds of creepy crawlies, all kinds of diseases, all kinds of things that begin to grow in that water that is actually very unhealthy for human consumption or just for human beings living around it. And I want to speak about stagnation and talk about how that works in our spiritual lives. You see, friends, a lot of believers think that as long as they're not overtly doing bad stuff, and they're kind of just doing, they're being neutral as neutral believers, not sinning really badly and doing really bad stuff, but they're kind of just neutral, then everything is fine for them. But let me tell you, friends, that the Bible doesn't speak about that kind of neutrality, and it actually speaks of there's a danger in, just like with water, when we stagnate in our spirituality and think, well, as long as I'm just walking a semi-decent, good line and I'm not falling either side of that line, I'm okay. I go to church now and again, I read my Bible now and again, I might say a prayer now and again, as long as I just be a good Christian. There's an inherent danger in that, friends. Someone once said, if you're not actively trying to renew your mind, the world is passively unrenewing it for you. And the goal is zeal and being zealous for the things of the kingdom. Amen? We don't want to be spiritually stagnating and allow the enemy to begin to bring things into us because we're actually not on our guard. We're not hot and spiritual. Or rather, we're not zealous. We are kind of just neutral. And neutrality or neutral is never a good place to be. Amen? When you're in a war and you're fighting, and Paul often will liken things we do to engaging the enemy. There is never neutral ground. There's never neutrality. As a matter of fact, all the armor that we carry, if you look at Ephesians, the armor that Paul speaks about, Ephesians chapter 6, is all on the front. None of it is at the back. Why? Because we're constantly on the offensive. So two quick scriptures, John 2:16 and 17. Jesus, we know, the guys are doing all kinds of monetary things and they're selling stuff inside the temple. And it says, to those who sold doves, he said, get these out of here. Stop turning my father's house into a market. And we understand that he made a whip and he was driving the animals out. But there's exclamation marks there. Stop turning my father's house into a market. In verse 17, his disciples remembered, and they quote, or they remembered the Psalms, and it says, it is written, zeal for your house consumes me. Zeal for the house of God consumed Jesus. Zeal for the house of God consumed Jesus. I'll say that again. Zeal for the house of God consumed Jesus. And he was able to do all the things he could do in the spiritual realm and on this planet because zeal for the house of God consumed him. In Romans 12:11, Paul says this. He says, never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor serving the Lord. That word zeal in the Greek there is a bubbling. Is a bubbling. He says, always be bubbling for the Lord, like hot water bubbles. Always be bubbling. Be on fire for God. When you're on fire for God, nothing can survive in there. No organisms can survive in the heat of a fire. They'll all die. When we have the heat of God's fire burning on the inside of us that comes out of every pore, nothing, no chochos the enemy tries to bring in us can survive. They will just die. Amen? Nothing trying to grow in that stagnating place because there is no stagnation. We are on fire for the Lord. So I want to encourage you, friends, even during this lockdown, keep your spiritual fervor. Keep your spiritual fervor. Don't become stagnating. Don't stagnate in this time. Keep your spiritual fervor. Keep your fires burning. Amen. Let zeal for the house of the Lord consume you. I will see you tomorrow.